Good evening, dear colleagues. Welcome to the third day of PMDPro study circle. And from today, we will discuss from page number 32, point number 1.2.7, phases in development and humanitarian projects. And yesterday we studied the last point was PM competencies, means Project DPro, project management competency model. And also we shortly discussed that project management in development and humanitarian sector is almost same, but the project life cycle, the way it's been defined or divided or devised is different from organization to organization, from donor to donor, from situation to situation. But the PMDPro guide has devised these project phases in development and humanitarian sector in 5 major phases. The phases are defining, designing, implementing, analyzing or adapting, and sharing. Now, let us read from the very beginning of the text. There is a box. We'll discuss the box in short later. Let me read from the very first word of this portion of the DPro guide. So let us look at the figure 9 and let us read. For example, represents the life cycle design for projects and programs for the World Wildlife Federation. In this case, the project life cycle is represented by a series of steps within a cycle and is just one example of a project life cycle model. Other development and humanitarian organizations have adopted project life cycles that are represented by other designs, including circular models, linear models, and modified spiral models. The exact sequence and wording of project life cycle diagrams can vary considerably between industries and organizations. However, their objectives are the same. By grouping activities into a project life cycle sequence, the project manager and the core team can better define the phases that connect the beginning of a project to its end, identify the processes that project teams must implement as they move through the phases of the project life cycle, illustrate how the project management lifecycle can be used to model the management of projects, model how projects work within an environment of constraints where changes to one constraint will result in consequential changes to the other project parameters. So let us look at the diagram given in the guide. So this is a diagram which is used by World Wildlife Federation. So we need to understand that this project life cycle is very much inclined to some kind of biodiversity or animal or laboratory or preservation or conservation related things, like other scientific conservation like or natural conservation like of things. And in their life cycle, there are 5 phases: defining phases, designing phases, implementing phase, analyzing or adapting phase, and sharing phase. So, but this phase can vary from situation to situation. donor to donor and organization to organization. Let's go forward as this is not very much important for us. So now we shall discuss point number 1.2.2. As I see a black box in the left top corner, so it's a problem. I think now you could see the text. Okay. Point 1.2.8, the project DPro phase model. The project DPro uses a phase model approach, providing guidance on what ought to be covered in each phase of the project. The project DPro phase model can be incorporated into already existing project life cycles or can stand alone if a life cycle is not available within the organization. It is important to point out that the phases don't necessarily take place consecutively, but rather they interact with one another. You do not start one phase, stop it, and start the next phase. This allows for more flexibility and adaptability of the phase model into a variety of different projects and sectors. The revised project DPro phase model has 5 phases: identification and definition, project setup, project planning, project implementation, and project closure. So there is a diagram. After reading the main text, we will discuss the diagram. Okay. The project DPro phase model was designed with the express intent of ensuring that the model is balanced and comprehensive, which is especially important within the context of the development and humanitarian sectors. Too often, organizations place a strong emphasis on designing and implementing the project, which can overshadow the importance of other phases in the life of the project. Clearly, strong design and implementation of projects are necessary, but is not sufficient to guarantee project success. A project must not only invest in strong, coherent project design and implementation, but must also commit to investing similar levels of resources and effort in all phases in the life of the project. There's a blue box. We shall discuss this blue box later. Now let's go back to the diagram. And before discussing the diagram, let me explain in short what we have learned from this portion of the DPro guide. The DPro project phase model is a 5-phaser approach. The phases are identification and definition, setup, planning and implementation, closure. And now let us discuss the diagram. I think you could see the diagram, but let me make it a bit bigger for you so that you could see easily. I hope, let me make it, okay. Okay, now I think you could see it easily, clearly. Perfect. Now let us understand the decision gate first. There is a triangle in each gap of each phase. So if we look at the triangle is the decision gate. In each phase for the development and humanitarian sector, in each phase, we have to decide whether we go forward or not. And we have to approve the decisions. Decisions means also the changes. Changes means when we implement projects, we see there are some changes created by the situation. And the situation are created or requested by the project team or by the stakeholders or by the donors. So in each phase, number one, we have to decide will you go forward or not regarding one phase to another phase. Number two, the changes are requested. We have to put the thumb yes or no for the changes or the change requests. And with that decision, we move forward to the another phase. So this is the decision gate. So we have to understand decision gate first. And in each phase, we have to put one thing, a cross-cutting issue, and that is monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. So to understand this, let us stop here. Then let's go back to the blue box, and then I will come back again. Monitoring, evaluation, and accountability. In the previous version of the Project DPro, monitoring, evaluation, and control MEC were included as a phase. However, in this version, the MEC has been expanded to include accountability and learning and has been incorporated into each of the phase of the project, providing guidance and tools on MEAL activities that should be done in each of the phases. This more integrated approach more clearly articulates how MEAL and project management need to work together to bring about the outputs and outcomes of the project. Now let's go back to the diagram. Now, in each of the phase, we have to keep one thing as a cross-cutting issue, and that is MEAL. We have to memorize this term. MEAL means monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. In another chapters, we'll discuss it in detail because it will be covered with detailing, so that let us keep it in aside now. And during all phases, we have to align with 5 DPro principles of project management. And these DPro principles are: each phase must be well governed, each phase must be participatory, each phase must be comprehensive, each phase must be integrated, and each phase must be adaptive. Now, that is the thing we need to keep it in mind, that the project DPro principle are project management principles are the cornerstone of managing projects using the project DPro guide, and these principles will keep us on track in terms of managing the project with quality, standard, quantity, and other things. Other things means like constraining the triple constraints, and also managing a project with the ideologies of scientific project management and artistic project management, so that in each phase, we can implement the projects with the standard that is required by the donor and the other stakeholders, because the art of project management is all about the way we manage the projects, and managing projects means we are enhancing the project quality. Now the diagram is done. Now let's move forward to the next point, and this is a sub point maybe. The project DPro phases. Now we will look at the detailed discussion on each phase of the project management. Identification and definition. It is during this phase that the project teams define needs, explore opportunities, analyze the project environment, and design alternatives for defining the project. The decisions made during the project identification and definition phase set the strategic and operational framework within which the project will subsequently operate. I'll keep silent for a moment so that you could look at the text. Okay, now project setup. It is during this phase that the project is officially authorized and the overall parameters of the project are defined and communicated to the main project stakeholders. It is also during this phase that the project team establishes the high-level project governance structure. I'll stop for a while so that you can read, because this is very important. Now let's move forward slowly. Now, project planning. Starting from the documents developed in earlier phases of the project, during this planning phase, the team develops a comprehensive and detailed implementation plan and supplementary plans like MEAL, supply chain, etc., that provides a model for all the work of the project. These plans are revisited throughout the life of the project and updated to reflect the changing contexts of the project. So we'll discuss the diagram later. Now let's go down to the project implementation phase. I'll stop here for a while, then I'll read again to allow you to see and read. Okay, now let me move forward. We shall discuss the diagram later. So let me go forward with project implementation. Project implementation, the day-to-day work of the project implementation is to lead and manage the application of the project implementation plan. Leading the team, dealing with issues, managing the project team, and creatively integrating the different elements of the project plan. I'll stop for a while, then I'll read project closure. Okay, now project closure. This phase includes implementing all closure activities that need to occur at the end of a project, including but not limited to confirming the deliverables with beneficiaries, collecting lessons learned, and completing the administrative, financial, and contractual closure activities. So now let us go forward. In general, certain phases of the project will take place only after others are completed. For example, project closure will take place after the project is implemented. This does not mean that project closure is ignored until after the implementation of phase is completed. While course activities will take place toward the end or after the implementation of the project, considerations will be made starting from the identification and definition phase, incorporated into the setup and planning phases as well. Now, let's discuss the diagram. Now, let us look at the diagram critically. Let us take the downward column, means the horizontal column, and the vertical column. The vertical column is level of work and resources, means the investment of time, the investment of team members, the investment of resources. And the horizontal column is the project life cycle, starting to end. Now let us see the project identification and definition. In definition phase, we have to, it's a short-lived phase, but during this we have to invest a minimum amount of time and resources it takes. And when we set the project, it takes less amount of resources because we did the primary researches, we did the data collection, data analysis. Now we take decisions, and we sit with different teams, and we formulate the documents and other proposals and other things. Then the project planning phase. When we start planning, we need to invest a lot of resources and time, because now we need to practically talk to people. We need to invest for that, like meal planning, finance planning, contract, and project planning, project guide development, training, and acquisition of the team members, foundational training for team members. So we need to invest a good amount of human resources, financial resources, time in this phase. Then the implementation. So this is the peak, because now we are implementing project in the field. We are going to the beneficiaries. We are going to the stakeholders. We are implementing the activities. We are reporting back. We are interacting with people. We are communicating with the beneficiaries and stakeholders. And now when the project is closed, now we don't need to invest a huge amount of time and resource, but it's less. But at the end of the project closure, every consumption of resources is done. Dear colleagues, we have discussed the decision gates, but as we are taking preparation for PMDPro, so we need to read word by word. Point number 1.2.9, decision gates. Decision gates are critically important to effectively managing projects. Decision gates are checkpoints in the project where you will justify that the project should move forward as is, make changes based upon information available, or stop the project altogether. Think about it this way. You are going to ask yourself, are we still doing the right project, and are we still doing it in the right way? Decision gates can take several different forms, and the number of formal decision gates will depend on the length and complexity of the project and the environment in which the project is operating. The decision gate process should also be linked to the project management tolerances and the governance structure of the project team. The governance of the project will help to guide and assist the project manager in making any changes and decisions through the decision gate process. If there is clarity on the authority level, the project manager has to make decisions and an understanding of which stakeholders to involve and when the decision gate process will be more efficient and effective. Navigating and managing a large group of stakeholders through a number of decision gates often takes considerable time and runs the risk of communications challenges. Despite these complexity and risk, the advantages of moving through decision gates in a participatory manner help to ensure that the organization does not invest extensive amounts of time, money, personal capacity, and organizational capital in developing project proposals that lack commitment and support from key decision makers, donors, implementing partners, decision makers internal to the agency. Provides a framework for project control, ensuring that mechanisms are in place and are effectively being used and examined throughout the life of the project. Support a robust analysis of the project concept, providing multiple perspectives and encouraging collective ownership for the project once it begins implementation. It maps out the process through which a project needs to be vetted in order to ensure that it has the support, both internal and external, that is required for the project to ultimately be approved, and reduces the probability of the preferred, perfected but rejected scenario. One of the best practices used to manage the risk of a perfected but rejected scenario is by establishing a decision gate process that consists of a series of authorization points at various stages of the project. By using decision gates, organizations identify a series of points in the project that require a decision to either proceed with the next phase of the project, modify the scope, schedule, and or budget of the project, or end the project outright. Each successive decision gate builds on the work that was developed in the previous stage. So we'll discuss perfected but rejected case scenario example. In the context of the project DPro project phase model, the decision gates are represented by the triangles located between the project phases. So we have discussed these diagram earlier. Let's see other texts are available. Yes, there are still no text, so let me read. As previously mentioned, the number of decision gates in a project will vary according to the project. It is its complexity and the key stakeholders. For that reason, the triangle icons decision gates in the project phase model are intended to serve as an illustrative model of where decision gates might be placed. Some projects might have more decision gates, others might have less. What should be clear is that a system of decision gates will help ensure that project investments are not made without the buy-in of key stakeholders. Placing decision gates at regular points in the project for example, at the beginning of each year of the project's implementation helps to keep the project focused on the need that the project was originally undertaken to address. Ensure that the context and assumptions that initially led to the approval of the project still exist. Provide an opportunity for the project team and key stakeholders to decide whether to continue the project as it is presented conceived, modify the project plan, terminate a project which is not necessarily a failure if the intervention is no longer appropriate, feasible, or necessary. Now, I think we should stop because it's all about decision gate. Let's go back to the first box of decision gate. Consulting stakeholders. As the team develops the documents associated with each decision gate, i.e., a business case document, concept paper, letter of interest, project proposal, etc., it will need to engage stakeholders to explore the central questions related to the potential project. These questions include, but are not limited to, the following. Has the project scope been reviewed and accepted by the project's beneficiaries? Is the high-level project schedule consistent with the expectations and constraints of the stakeholders? Have stakeholders agreed on a minimum level quality requirement? Has the high-level project scope, schedule, and budget been reviewed with the implementing organizations who will conduct project activities? These questions and others like them provide check-in points early on in the project design process that help to ensure that the official project proposal is feasible and appropriate. So let us discuss these or yellow box, then we'll discuss about the text we have read earlier. Take, for example, you are in the identification and definition phase, and you ask yourself, at this point, we have already invested considerable amounts of time, money, effort into the identification and definition of the project without having any guarantee that our project will be approved. Isn't this a significant risk? There is always a risk that an organization will invest extensive resources in the project identification and definition phase and then find out the project is not officially approved. In an ideal world, the project team would want to set up a system through which they can receive a clear indication of whether a project will or will not receive support before considerable resources are invested in the identification and definition of the project. Project teams want to avoid the perfected but rejected scenario, where organizations have already spent thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars on project identification and definition activities, but the project ultimately lacks the support of key stakeholders inside the organization, in the community, and among government staff, or from the intended donors. Let's discuss in short about the decision gate. Suppose we have identified a social problem. Now think about it. We have identified a social problem. We have identified root causes. We did a problem analysis. We have a problem statement. We have some solutions. We have activities and action plan for the solutions, and we have defined the project. Means the project, the rationale of the project, the outcome of the project, the roles and responsibilities of the team members. So we did everything. We set the goals, but then we started setting up the project. But still now, during implementation of the project, we failed to ensure the funding from the donor. Now what will happen? Donor might be ensuring us to fund or not, but we have set the project. That's why when we identify a project, we define the project, we have to decide that the project will be funded or not. Minimum we need that, but we don't need perfected but rejected scenario. Now what is perfected but rejected scenario? Let's move forward. And Okay. Perfected but rejected scenario is scenario where you have submitted all of your researches, all of your documents to the donor, and the donor said that, okay, look at these things and these things and these things, and we cannot fund the project right now. So now the project has been perfected, but it's rejected. And in this point, our investment, tens of thousands of dollars we have invested, it has gone in vain. Okay. Now this yellow box, let's discuss it. Decision gates, an adaptive and agile tool. As project progress through the 5 phases, it is recommended that the project team revisit the justification and planning of the project through a series of formal decision gates represented by triangles in the project phase model, and at each decision gate, the project team has the opportunity to decide whether the initial justification for the project is valid, whether any changes are required, or whether project investments need to be halted altogether. So every project and organization will have a different approach to decision gates. The most frequently used decision gates tend to be those that are found in the early phases of the project. These include the concept papers, project proposals that comprise the input documents to decide whether to move forward with potential projects. It is advisable, however, to also include decision gates in later phases of the project. During the implementation phase, for example, it is helpful to formally check to ensure that the need of the project is intended to address still exists, that the logic of the intervention is still valid, that implementation plans are still accurate. Means, so we have to keep it in one point, that the decision gate is an adaptive and agile tool. It gives the project the expected agility that is required to ensure that the log frame, means the logical framework, the project logic is still valid, and we have to check that through the decision gates we can ensure that the implementation plans, for example, the procurement plan, the MEAL plan, the HR plan, the purchase plan, the risk management plan, all the plans are accurate. So it gives us to build and to check and recheck the everything we have planned throughout the project lifetime. Now, decision gates in the delta lever latrine construction project. Earlier, I told you clearly that we have to take the delta river latrine construction project as a living example throughout this DPro guide and in our exam too. So let's look at this. The decision gates during the project identification and definition phase in this case could be the following. Now we are putting this decision gate example within the scope of the Delta River latrine construction project. Okay, decision gate 1, project concept note. Now we have developed a project concept note. Okay, now let's read. As an implementing partner, you submit a concept note to an INGO outlining the high-level activities, budget, and timeline for a project under the INGO's program. The concept note will result in one of the following scenarios. Your concept note is approved and you move to the next stage of a fully developed proposal. Your concept note is rejected. Your concept note is approved with changes. So these 3 scenarios can happen. Gate 2, project proposal. Once the initial concept notice has been approved, you will likely be asked to develop a fully developed proposal. Much like the concept note, there are 3 possible scenarios that could take place. 1, the proposal is approved and you move forward with setting up and planning for the project. 2, the proposal is rejected. 3, the proposal is approved with changes. Now decision gate 3, government authorization. Most governments, local or national, in which a project operates require authorization before proceeding. Governments generally need to approve the local location, concept, and other key elements of the project before it moves forward to the next phase. Now, so in each gate, if you stop, you could see that your work is really relevant and you are rewarded. And these gates stop us to make sure that we are not investing our time and resources and effort to let it go in vain. Decision gates within each phase will differ depending on the project, organization, context. Internal decision gates must be closed before moving to the next phase of the project. So please read this sentence again. Internal decision gates must be closed before moving forward to the next phase of the project. If a decision gate remains open while moving to the next phase, it could impact the project team's ability to effectively complete the steps that need to be taken in the next phase. For example, in identification and definition phase, there are 3 small gates. If project concept note is approved, then we'll develop project proposal. If the project proposal is approved, then we'll apply for government authorization. If all these 3 things are happened, then the project identification and definition decision is made, the gate is closed, opened, and we'll go to the setup phase. So for example, if government authorization is not achieved, the decision gate remains open. The project team has spent resources and effort in the project setup phase while not having formal approval to actually move forward with the project. This could negatively impact the project, organization, and stakeholders if the project does not receive the government authorization. The stakeholders who will be involved in each internal decision gate may also vary, so thought needs to be put into determining which internal decision gates to include and which stakeholders should be consulted during these processes. Emergency decision gates. There will be circumstances in which project operating environments can change quickly and decisions need to be made to determine how to move forward with the project. This is where emergency decision gates come into play. Emergency decision gates are put in place when decision needs to rapidly be made on whether to continue with the project or whether to close it down. An example of when this could happen is in a conflict environment when the circumstances quickly evolve, putting the project or team members at risk. This decision will not always be within the authority tolerance level of the project manager. In most cases, it will not be. The project manager should work with the governance structure and stakeholders to determine if and when emergency decision gate should be considered. So, my colleagues, this is the last point and frank discussion. Many of my respected colleagues, you have worked in emergency programs, humanitarian programs, where the projects are being implemented in a conflict scenario, in a post-conflict scenario, in a flooding scenario, in a earthquake scenario, in a fire incident scenario. So in these situations, there are some emergency decision gates where you can sweep the decision gates, like maybe you have not ensured the government authorization, but the flooding is happening. So you have applied for the authorization, but the project implementation already being started, but you have informed the government, okay, the authority, the local authority, that we have applied for the authorization from the government, but still now we need to go forward as people needs to leave tonight. So there needs the emergency assistance food package tonight, but the approval will need 3 or 4 days. So that these are the emergency decision gates where we can really skip the approval or the yes or the green signal from the authority. So these are the emergency decision gates. So dear colleagues, we'll take a 10 minutes break, and if there is no technical faults, tuned with us. We'll come back in 10 minutes. This is 8 p.m. Bangladesh Standard Time, and in my clock, I will come back at 8:10 p.m. means Bangladesh Standard Time, and I will start from 1.2.10 how the phases are organized. So thank you very much for being with us, and I hope that if we continue discussing like this, and our exam will be very foolproof, and we can pass the exam in one chance. Thank you very much. I'll come back soon. See you soon.